the White House had put all sorts of signs up of the illegal aliens in this country who are criminals. They put these signs up, the faces, the mugshots of the people, what they've been accused of, what they've done. And it was awesome because it's a reminder for all these people who like to talk about a Maryland family man. And it was a reminder. The press literally could not cover it.
Well, I think we got to get the message out because all of those placards that you saw, those were people who were arrested since the start of this, since January 20th, right? So those are the worst of the worst.
Right.
The border matters. The sovereignty of the United States matters. If you're in the country without being inspected, admitted, invited, or within the rule of law, you're subject to deportation. And so sometimes people are getting arrested. Now, the priority, if you talk to Todd Lyons, who's the acting director now of ICE, the priority is the worst of the worst. He's going after hardened criminals that are in every community in the United States. That's their priority. But if that criminal is living with other people who are in the country illegally, they're also going to be arrested because this president, and he's only the first one that's ever stated it out loud, is that if you're in the country illegally, you're going to be subject to enforcement proceedings.
All right, guys, happy Tuesday to you. I know the clock says, the calendar says it's 100 days of Donald Trump's second term. But it feels like 300, doesn't it? I was listening to one of his aides on morning television say it doesn't feel like 100 days, and I know what they feel like. Got to spend some quality time there yesterday at the White House. I'm going to break it down with you. We've got some great content to share with you. It was really cool. So went over, if you watch the morning meeting, I did the morning meeting from the driveway of the White House and actually brought the folks who watched the morning meeting into the briefing room while Karoline was giving a briefing with Tom Homan. So that was kind of cool. If you watch the morning meeting, check it out. You can always go to my YouTube page and go back onto the live events and watch it if you did miss it or if you want to check it out. But it was kind of fun. And then we did part of this media row where we sat down with some of the senior officials, some of my former colleagues, some new people, and really talked about where we are in this administration, what they've done and what they've accomplished. It was really cool. And then, by the way, I'm going to get to this other really awesome briefing that I was part of as well, because I want to show you these. But one of the cool things after the interview that we did with some of these senior officials is Karoline held her first ever influencer briefing in a separate briefing room. It's in a place called South Court. You might remember that. That's where Joe Biden had that fake Oval Office, where they've retrofitted it now. And anyway, it was cool. By the way, check this out. I was walking out. I'll jump ahead right now, but I was walking out, and of course, I saw the president's red Tesla there in the driveway. Take a look. You can see it there, just sitting there, waiting to be driven. Trying to figure out if someone could just hand me the keys or something. But anyway, like I said, I want to break down for you a couple of the interviews that we had to get inside the White House's discussion. There were some really cool visuals as I entered the White House yesterday. The White House had put all sorts of signs up of the illegal aliens in this country who are criminals. And it was a reminder the press couldn't escape staring at them. They really couldn't. And I'll show you some of the video here of what I'm talking about. Like the press, they put these signs up, the faces, the mugshots of the people, what they've been accused of, what they've done. And it was a reminder the press literally could not cover it. And it was awesome because it's a reminder for all these people who like to talk about a Maryland family man. Here it is. But anyway, I want to kind of work backwards from the day because one of the things that I did at the end of the day was I participated in this first ever White House influencer briefing. And it was really cool. Some of the people you guys know and follow, DC Drano, Rogan O'Hanley, Chad Prather, he's been on the show before. Erin Wexler, you know her as well. She's been on our show as well. Emily Austin was there. Several others. Simon Marshall had come in from Britain. Anyway, I was one of the first people to be part of this briefing. It was really cool what Karoline is doing to create more transparency, bring more voices in. I know the press hates this stuff because it minimizes their ability to control what we read, see, and hear. But the cool part about it is Karoline really talked about what they're doing and what this first 100 days mean and why they're able to reach out the way that they are. Take a look.
It's great to be with you. This is our first official influencer briefing here at the White House. I want to thank you all so much for joining us on what is day 99 of the Trump administration. And as I promised, as my first briefing as press secretary back in January, the Trump White House will speak to all media outlets and personalities, not just the legacy media who traditionally has covered this institution. Tens of millions of Americans are now turning to social media and independent media outlets to consume their news. And we are embracing that change, not ignoring it. It's well past time that the White House press operation reflected the media habits of the American people in 2025 and not 1925. And thanks to President Trump, a select group of DC-based journalists no longer have a monopoly over press access here at the White House. All journalists, outlets, and voices have a seat at the table now, and you being here today for this briefing proves that. Today officially marks the 99th day of promises made and kept by President Trump. Our primary focus today is how President Trump has fulfilled one of his central campaign promises to the American people in record time, ending the massive illegal invasion and securing our nation's southern and northern borders. As we know, Joe Biden allowed millions of criminal illegal aliens to pour into our country over the past 4 years. And as we all know, a significant number of those aliens have been vicious gang members, murderers, rapists, and pedophiles. Innocent Americans like Laken Riley, Jocelyn Nungray, Rachel Morin, and many others have been murdered because of Joe Biden's open border. President Trump made a promise to the American people, to all of you, and your audiences, to end the carnage and keep our country safe. And he has overwhelmingly delivered on that promise. He immediately declared a national emergency on the southern border, deployed the U.S. military and Border Patrol to repel the invasion, and ended reckless catch and release policies. And as a result, between the inauguration and April 1st of this month, only 9 illegal aliens were released into the United States of America. This is a staggering 99.99% decrease from more than the 184,000 illegal aliens who were released into the country under Joe Biden during that same period last year. You can't get much better than 99.99% decrease. Total attempted illegal crossings at the southwest border hit a record low in February, only to fall to another record low again last month in March. President Trump signed the Laken Riley Act into law, requiring illegal aliens arrested or charged with theft or violence to be detained. And he reestablished the successful Remain in Mexico policy from his first term. The president has also restarted construction of his signature border wall. More than 85 miles have been built and are in various stages of construction and planning. He designated cartels as foreign terrorist organizations, invoked the Alien Enemies Act to apprehend, detain, and remove these massive threats who have flooded our country. And the Trump administration, as you heard from our border czar Tom Homan earlier today, is working literally 24/7 around the clock to successfully arrest and deport illegal criminals and foreign terrorists from our communities, your communities. We're in the beginning stages of carrying out the largest deportation campaign in American history. And despite the legacy media's fear-mongering and lies about this, we will continue with these successful operations because we know that's what the American people are expecting from this president, and that's why they overwhelmingly reelected him to this office. Over the past weekend, it was announced Operation Tidal Wave was a joint effort in ICE Miami and Florida law enforcement agencies. Nearly 800 illegal aliens were arrested during the first 4 days alone. I don't know if we have any Floridians in here, but you're welcome. Operation Tidal Wave is a preview of what is to come around the country. Large-scale operations employing our state and local law enforcement partners to get criminal aliens off our streets. And we will not apologize for this. This is the first of its kind multi-agency immigration enforcement operation coordinated by ICE with federal partners. And this multi-day operation has so far resulted in nearly 800 illegal aliens apprehended in 4 days, including MS-13, murderers, rapists, drug traffickers, and human rights abuses. So, safe to say, President Trump made a promise to all of you, your audiences, and the American public to secure our nation's borders. He has overwhelmingly delivered on that promise. And you will see the legacy media has nitpicked stories to try to drum up sympathy for people who broke our nation's laws. This White House has sympathy for American citizens, for law-abiding families who are doing what's right, who came here the right way. That includes legal immigrants who have come to this country, paid their dues, waited their turn. and are now being cheated and ripped off by, or were being cheated and ripped off by the previous administration. We are putting Americans first every day, and we applaud the ICE agents and Border Patrol agents who are on the ground doing this important work. That's just the border. Of course, the president has been working incredibly hard to unleash the might of our economy here at home. He's in the process of negotiating fair trade deals abroad with many countries around the world who have come to the table because the president is using the leverage of this office of the United States of America to leverage our economic might and to cut good trade deals. You also look at what's happening on the world stage when it comes to foreign policy. The president has put the world on notice. They all understand that we have a commander-in-chief in the Oval Office who is going to put America and our troops first, who's going to do what's right for our country, our nation, our people, even if that means making tough decisions. And we are closer today to a peace deal in Russia and Ukraine, certainly than we were when we took office on January 20th. If you look at the situation in the Middle East, Israel has never had a stronger friend than they do right now in the Oval Office with President Trump. We've had more than 75 hostages who have returned home from around the world, or wrongfully detained individuals. You can only do that if you have a president who's unafraid to use the leverage of the United States. So there are many accomplishments to talk about this week. I haven't even mentioned the restoring common sense effort of this administration to get men out of women's sports, to root out DEI and waste, fraud, and abuse from our federal bureaucracy. The president has done so much in such little time, and we're working very hard here every day. We appreciate all that you do on social media to push what the president is saying, but also sometimes question it. And we relish independent journalism. And I hope you all have seen the president, myself, anybody in this administration. We are unafraid to take questions. This has truly been the most transparent and accessible presidency in American history.
All right. The cool part was, like a normal briefing, I got to ask questions. So did everybody else. There was no limits to what we could ask or no questions off the table. And the first thing I wanted to know was something that I've talked about a lot, which is, look, Republicans control the House and the Senate right now. We have a tenuous majority in the House. I mean, I know we're now at like a 4-seat majority, but I do worry that all these executive orders that President Trump put in the first term, that Biden took out in the second when he left office, and then when Trump put back in, it will be undone potentially. So how do we codify this in law? Because I think that's important. So this is how I framed my first question to Karoline.
First, as you mentioned, reconciliation. Beyond that and what he hopes to get out of that, considering how slim the House majority is, what other legislative priorities does he want to see codified in law before this Congress adjourns?
Mm-hmm. It's a really good question, Sean. I think reconciliation is the first and foremost question on the president's mind right now. It's a huge deal. We have to get it done. He's working closely with Congress. In fact, he's meeting with Speaker Johnson, I think, in a few minutes today in the Oval Office to discuss this very bill and measure. Aside from reconciliation, which we hope and are very confident will include more funding for border wall construction and mass deportations, as I mentioned earlier, but it's also very important that we get tax cuts passed. That is the second step in the Trump economic agenda. The president has used every executive lever he can to slash burdensome regulation, and we continue to do that every day across every agency. Administrator Zeldin is doing a fantastic job at the EPA, I may add, but every cabinet secretary is getting rid of regulation very seriously. The president is certainly working on unleashing American energy to drive down costs, but tax cuts are a critical component of really seeing the Trump economic formula be put together. So he wants to see tax cuts passed in this reconciliation package. That includes no tax on tips, no tax on Social Security, no tax on overtime, no tax on Social Security for our seniors, of course, too. As for other measures that would be codified into law, certainly we've seen the president put forth common sense executive orders and take really common sense executive action that we would love Congress to take further action on to ensure that the president's executive actions can remain long after his tenure. So you don't have another president come in here in 8 years and undo some of the executive work that the president has worked so hard on. So we want Congress to continue getting to work, but we got to get this reconciliation bill passed first.
All right. So again, I mean, this is what we're talking about here. What are they going to do to make sure that we codify some of these really important things that President Trump has accomplished into law? I then went on because I wanted to ask her a question that I get asked all the time. Some of you guys put this in the comments. Sometimes I get asked places. It's like, why does he give credence to some of these left-wing reporters? I get it. I get asked this all the time, right? People want to know, like, why is he sitting down with the New York Times, the Washington Post, or Jeffrey Goldberg and Ashley Parker of the Atlantic? Or in the case of tonight, Terry Moran of ABC News. But I know the answer because I dealt with this during the first term, and I asked him, but I wanted Karoline to articulate it because I think it's important to remind people why President Trump does a lot of this. And so here's my question, and here's what she said.
But a lot of conservatives will ask me, why does he sit down with people like Terry Moran of ABC or Jeffrey Goldberg of the Atlantic? What is the rationale behind that, rewarding people who have very vehemently expressed disdain for him personally?
Because the president is unafraid, and he is inspired by competition, and he likes to talk to people face to face. And I think that's one of his best attributes and qualities. We live in an incredibly divisive country, unfortunately, that has been really the result and consequence, frankly, of the fake news and the hoaxes and lies they have driven at this president for the better part of the last decade now. But the fact that we still have a president who has been a victim of these hoaxes, these lies, these smears by so many legacy media outlets and reporters, yet he's still willing to sit down with them, look them in the eye, look them face to face, and take them to task and share the truth with them and his perspective, I think is what the American people deserve in a president.
Amazing. One of the things, though, that I did earlier in the day, though, was get an opportunity to sit down with a lot of the senior White House folks. And one of the people that I sat with is a gentleman by the name of Kaelan Dorr in the communications office. Now, Kaelan worked with me during the first term. And one of the things that he does now is he runs the entire surrogate kind of operation. That means when it comes to bringing in new voices and getting people out on television, but also working with influencers and podcasters, independent media, and giving them opportunities to interface with senior officials, cabinet officials, etc. And they do a lot of the digital strategy as well. They are the ones who made the COVID-19 website and all of these other things where they get the talking points out to people. And I wanted to sit down and talk to Kaelan about the strategy that they're using to communicate to the American people about President Trump's agenda and specifically his first 100 days. And here's what he had to say. Kaelan Dorr, thanks for having us here. Walk us through, I mean, you guys, as the 100-day mark hits the White House, what's the strategy to get the word out?
Well, obviously, we've gone above and beyond to incorporate outreach to new media this week. So the past 6 days, we've had folks from the podcast world, influencers, local radio, local TV, all of the above come through the White House. We've opened up the doors in ways that I don't think we've ever seen before, because it's about time we go to the American public with information, right? For 4 years during this blip, the American people were scrambling to figure out who was even running our country, right? So you're very familiar with how transparent the president strives to be, and we strive to embody that. So things like this today, things like, I don't know if you saw, we redecorated the lawn
I did.
this
It was
morning.
nice.
To make sure that everyone has everything they need to go out there and speak intelligibly about what we're doing, because we've done a lot in 100 days.
So during the campaign, the president did a lot of long-form podcasts. A lot of influencers were brought into the fold. When you guys do stuff like this, how much involvement or understanding does he have of this? Do you guys go to him and say, here's all the... Because obviously he can only do so many interviews personally. But how much is he aware of what you guys are doing to highlight the accomplishments?
Well, I think everything's reported up to him. And like I said, we're going to cross 100 new media outlets here in about 5 days through the White House. So he's very well aware, but as you know, he's head down working and actually putting lead on target. And you know, he'll be doing some media around the 100-day celebration. He's traveling to Michigan this Tuesday, Alabama on Thursday. He's getting out there. He's hitting the road, doing what he loves to do. But we're working on ways to make sure we incorporate this new media as the all-encompassing frame.
But it's not just new media. I mean, the thing is, Kaelan, it's not just new media. What I think is fun, from my perspective, is watching the utilization of the digital stuff. Like, because you amplify stuff with your own content as well, right? I mean, that to me, as a former comm staffer, is sort of the fun part of this, because it's not relying on, you know, on any show or any outlet or any content provider or influencer to use the material. You guys put out stuff. How has that changed, especially from when we were here in the first term?
Yeah. I mean, it's all offense. I mean, we haven't taken our foot off the gas for 1 second.
The COVID-19 page. I mean, the good stuff that's like you troll people online.
Yeah.
And that's not traditional.
No, not at all.
Does the president get a kick out of this? I mean, does it, like when you guys do stuff like this, do you guys go in and say, hey, let me show you what we did?
Yeah, that's been a big part of it. And obviously, I mean, that one was so good. I had that done about a month ago, and we waited for like a slow news day because we wanted it to get.
Is there a
like,
slow news day here?
I mean, we strive to move things around. You know, we do a little bit of this, a little bit of that, but we've been moving things around so we get maximum impact. But really, the constant deluge. I mean, if you saw the list of things I have backed up that we want to get out here for when like something comes up, you'd be astounded. The team that we've assembled, Sean, is insanely creative, and we've given everyone enough rope to hang themselves with, right?
And that's the thing about Trump is that I've always said this to people, he doesn't care, he doesn't ask for permission. You don't go to him and say, can I do this? He just, if you have something great, you think it's going to work, he's always, that's been the beauty of being around and working with Trump, is that he gives people the latitude to do great things and not worry about traditional norms.
Oh yeah, no, I've gotten a call, when we run a little hot on social media to be like, hey, you might want to like slow down a little bit, or hey, let's make sure that, I think the phrase is always, let's make sure there's an extra set of approval or extra set of eyes on some of these things. But really we're left to operate because it's not hard. Like, you know this, like it's not hard. You don't need a firm on Madison Avenue to come through and game plan a message progression and take you on a creative retreat to do anything. Really, like, if you've been around, the president's made it very clear where we're going. It's a matter of just sitting down and taking the time to ideate and innovate ways to communicate. And I think we've done a pretty good job of that so far. What do you think?
I like I said, to me, I had a conversation with the president the other day, and he asked me, as he does, how's it going? And I said, for the second time in the last month that we've talked, I said, I'm just jealous of what you guys are able to do. It's different. There's a cohesion that's here. There's a sense of purpose among the staff that wasn't here in the first term. And again, that's not a critique. It's just, it was different. It was new. This time he's got a lot more time under his belt, a lot of time to think about a lot of these things. And I think it reflects in how things are put out. So that to me has been fascinating, just how, there's been this embrace of new tools, strategy, content that we didn't have the first time, mostly because we thought that we're supposed to follow certain norms and rules that, frankly, we shouldn't have.
Yeah, no, and I was just talking to someone here earlier today, stuff like the Maryland Man hoax. Looking back, like, I think we really would have stopped and maybe paused for a moment.
Right.
We just put the foot down on the gas pedal harder. We're making fun. I think I put out like 6 memes about Chris Van Hollen in one day.
Which would have never happened.
Never would have happened.
No. But now it's like, I mean, A, it's right. And B, the funny thing is I had Chris Wilson, this pollster / data analyst who's working with Brad Parscale. And he came in and he said, because I said in my gut, there's no way that people are going to side with Van Hollen flying to a foreign country to release a guy who's in the country illegally. There was a gang member that abused women, right? You don't need a poll to tell you that. And sure enough, the sentiment was it. So when you guys did that, it was like, okay, it made sense. But I don't think many people expected the White House to be trolling Senator Chris Van Hollen.
Well, it's because, previous administrations, you would have given them latitude to dance out of these corners. And we've really boxed them in, like, aggressively. Like, they're out here defending murderers, rapists, pedophiles, child murderers. I mean, the list goes on and on. You've seen it. There's 101 portraits out there. And so, again, you're not giving them any latitude because that's what they would do to us at the end of the day. Like, they've been relentless in previous administrations.
You used a word that's interesting, slow, a minute ago. And I thought about it because I'll come clean. And I said on the show on Monday, I had a list of accomplishments, and I didn't create that. Your team did. You gave it to, and I'm reading the list of accomplishments, and it was like boom, 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 right? I don't know how many pages were in it because I had to cut it down.
About 17.
Right.
Yeah.
So, but I kept cutting it down, right? Because I couldn't get through all of it. But that's kind of the thing. When you sent it to me and I started reading through it, I go, I forgot about that. I forgot about that. Oh yeah, he did that. And when you say slow, the president will never slow down. That's just not in his nature. But how do we find a balance maybe between making sure people understand all of the things he's doing on their behalf, and getting, because I forgot about him and I cover this, every day. I watch the briefings. So how do we make sure that people are acknowledging what he's doing?
I think for some of these things that may not be getting attention now, we're going to go back and find ways to make sure we're doing something a little creative outside the box, and finding ways to, I think, One thing that's very popular that everyone always talks about that I personally don't know that we've done enough communicating on is the Doge stuff.
I agree. I mean, I'm outraged every time I see one of those things. And frankly, the funny thing is, even to the people on the left who say, "Oh, well, it's not $1 billion; it's only $5." I'm like, who cares if it's $10? Yeah. Like the idea that like I'm sending money in the form of tax dollars to this government, I expect them to be spending it wisely. So if they're finding 2 quarters in a couch, I think that's right. So I'm with you. I think the more that we can expose how poorly and inefficient the government is running, the better.
I think that will be something we talk about a lot.
It'll be harder when Elon leaves.
I don't know that it ever is like leaving. I think he'll always be involved. And even if he does, like the spirit and the ethos of what they're doing is, I mean, the first few weeks we're like onboarding all these cabinet members, and like I call in their digital guys like, all right, what the hell's going on? It's like you're all in a competition. Everyone gets sworn in, and then like 30 minutes later, they put out a direct-to-camera video outlining all this fraud, waste, and abuse. Like, what's going on? They're all competing with each other.
Oh, that's great.
They're all going back and forth. So like, I cut more than you, I did more than you, and like that's something we want to keep going.
Yeah, good.
Right? And
actually, maybe that's the idea. Maybe there's a competition.
That's kind of where my head's at.
All right,
I
like
a leaderboard. You know,
start announced here. All right.
That's right.
Kaelan Dorr, thanks for inviting us. Thanks for all the work that you guys are doing here to get the word out. Appreciate it.
Thanks for everything.
I
appreciate you.
You bet. That was awesome. That explains what they're doing. And as an example, this morning, they're putting out a ton of talking points. I got a 23-page document of all the promises made and promises kept from the president. Think about that, 23 pages. I'll start to scroll through some of that right now just to show you what I'm talking about. But like, there's things I forgot that he even did. It's cultural stuff like the DEI and the wokeness, et cetera. But then there's a lot of other stuff that you just are like, you know, the immigration, the border, we'll get to that in a minute. But there's so many things that he has done in 100 days that we have forgotten because it's so, I mean, he's just going at a breakneck speed. And then they put out this other thing, the first 100 days on the economy. And you hear a lot of the media talk about the economy and where it is and everyone. But if President Trump ran on 2 top things, I'd say number 1 was immigration. We're going to talk about that in a second. Number 2 is the economy. And here are the facts for all of the stuff that you hear from the left-wing media. President Trump has created 345,000 jobs since taking office in January. The labor force participation rate for those without a high school diploma is up 0.7% since he took office. Veteran unemployment rate is down from 4.2 in January to 3.8. 228,000 jobs were created in March alone. I mean, it is amazing. Inflation, you know, that issue that so many people cared about, prescription drug costs down, energy down, gas down, egg prices down, so many of the things that we see. So if those are the issues that he campaigned on, pretty much hit it out of the park, right? Anyway, we've got 2 great interviews coming up, though, of the senior officials talking about the border. And then we talked to my buddy Seb Gorka, as you know, about what we're doing to keep America safe again. Tomorrow, we're going to release more of my interviews from the White House. Tammy Bruce, the State Department's chief spokesman, she works with Marco Rubio hand in hand. You might remember her. She used to be on Fox. She's going to fill us on everything that happened at the State Department. Ukraine, I talked to her about Ukraine. I'm going to talk to her about China. So much of what's happening overseas and these cuts to the State Department, which I like to call more of a realignment. We're going to talk to her about everything that's happening in foreign policy. And then Scott Turner, who is the Secretary of HUD, Housing and Urban Development, and what they're doing to root out wokeness and DEI, how Doge is having an effect on our ability to do this. And I'm telling you guys, it's fascinating how much some of these things that have infected these departments of these left-wing policies that we get into that you're going to want to hear about. It was pretty cool. Thursday, we've got a great panel coming your way. Mehmet Cook, Congresswoman Nan Hayworth, and Chris DeGaulle will join us. And then on Friday, Congressman Byron Donalds is going to break down everything that's going on with the administration and working with Congress and plus the reconciliation bill. Anyway, so much to get to. I will tell you, even after a long, hectic day, what did I do last night? I made sure I got a good night's sleep because I've made wellness a big part of my journey here in 2025. So I do what I do every night. Right before I went to bed, I took a scoop of Beam Dream Powder. Here I am crushing another one of the cocoa cinnamon flavors. It has made a real difference in my life. I mean, it is proudly founded in America, which I love. It's run by people who share our values, hard work, integrity, and delivering results. Great company. It's science-backed. It's got this unbelievable, I love, as I told you guys before, the cinnamon cocoa, but I also am a big fan of the brownie flavor, and then the peppermint is really good as well. But the cool thing about it is I've used to take pills like melatonin, I've had magnesium, right? And all these things. And instead of doing all that, it's one delicious blend of all of the stuff, reishi, magnesium, L-theanine, apigenin, and melatonin, all in one thing. I take one scoop, I put it in the microwave for 30 seconds. I literally fall asleep within 30 minutes. I stay asleep. I wake up feeling refreshed. And these guys in this company at Beam have already improved over 17.5 million nights sleep worldwide. Professional athletes, and professional business people are all relying on Beam just like I am now because it just is so cool. Here's the cool thing though. Beam right now is giving the ultimate Patriot discount of 40% off. You can try any of those flavors that I mentioned of Beam's Dream Powder and get to 40% off just for a limited time though. Tariff free, right? Pretty cool. So go to shopbeam.com/Spicer. Use code Spicer at checkout. Shopbeam.com/Spicer, code word Spicer, and that gets you 40% off. Support a great American company, invest in yourself, your wellness, and your sleep, and start getting a better night's sleep and wake up feeling refreshed. Anyway, once you do wake up refreshed, what do you want to do? You want to be on the go. And guess what I do? I put on my Gravity Defier shoes. I love wearing these things around. These shoes have been a total game changer for me in my life. And I think if you guys have been watching the show, you know that I love the fact that I started with one pair. Now I've got three. I run in a pair. It's technically just a jog, but I like to say I'm running. I've got a pair that I use for walking, then just a pair that I use for like playing pickleball or going to the gym or whatever. But these Gravity Defier shoes, I have weak knees. I have bad hips. I'm working on all that. But at the end of the day, right now, these shoes are a complete game changer. They've got this Verso technology in them, which is like being in a trampoline. The cushion that you feel in a pair of Gravity Defier shoes is something that I've never felt in another pair. And I've worn everything on the market over time. And some of them have been great and better than others, but Gravity Defier are in a league of their own. They're FTC approved to relieve pain caused by walking, running, or even if you're just somebody who stands, up because of where you work all day long. I'm telling you, it's unbelievable. The shoe works as hard as you do. So whether you're just standing up all day or trying to go work out, I'm just telling you, Gravity Defier shoes are a total game changer. They're especially ideal for veterans, seniors, anyone who is active or healthy or trying to be healthier. Here's the best part. Listeners of the Sean Spicer Show can get an exclusive 50% off any order of $120 or more. That's literally 50% off most of the shoes right now. So all you have to do is text Sean. It's spelled right, SEAN. So just text SEAN to 91888 and claim your deal. They'll send you a link. That's how you can shop. It's amazing. These will totally transform your daily lives. They're risk-free for 60 days. So if you don't believe me, you don't trust me, you don't think I'm right, you can actually send them back. You have absolutely nothing to lose. Stand tall, walk strong, feel better. Literally text Sean, SEAN, to 91888 right now. Or if you really want, just go to GDEFY.com and take your first step towards a better, pain-free life. You've earned it. All right. I want to get into two conversations with you from yesterday. One is to talk to Ron Vitello. He is the senior advisor for Border and Customs. And break down everything that they've done in the last 100 days to keep us safer, to secure the border. And then we're going to get into it with our old friend, Seb Gorka. All right, first up, Ron. Ron, thanks for being with us again. Look, when you walked into the White House this morning, there was just placard after placard of illegal alien and what they've done. Where's the balance between getting the message out and making sure that, doing your job, keeping illegals out, and making sure that the American people understand who some of these people are?
Well, I think we got to get the message out because all of those placards that you saw, those were people who were arrested since the start of this, since January 20th. Right, so those are the worst of the worst.
Right.
That the president agreed and the American public agreed with him and voted him into office to take care of that problem in our cities and our towns. And so that's a result of the front line. And then I would say that getting the message out is important. The White House does it really well. Kristi Noem has been doing a wonderful job at that. We see Tom Homan on TV regularly. And so we have to get the message out because we have to refute the propaganda that's in the mainstream media and let people know what's actually happening.
I was listening to Secretary Rubio push back on Meet the Press this weekend about these women that were deported and the children that were with them. It's funny to me because it seems like under the first Trump administration, we would arrest folks and then they talked about that family separation. They'd say, well, the kid didn't do anything and you're separating them. Now we're actually keeping them together. It seems like you can't win.
Yeah, the media here they're working on someone else's agenda. They're not working on the American people's agenda because they're saying things like there was no due process in this case, that this woman didn't have time, that these children were deported. That's not the case.
So explain that. Because I've heard the same thing you have. So let's just start with why was or was not there due process?
Well, there is a process. When someone gets arrested that's in the country illegally, they have an opportunity to see like this guy, Brago Garcia.
Right.
He was arrested. He was ordered deported. He appealed that decision by an immigration judge.
Yep.
He lost that appeal. So he was ordered deported by our government in the process that exists. There is no other process.
Well, I was going to say, see, to me, that was the process.
That's exactly.
When the Democrats say there was no due process, that's just patently false.
It's not true at all. There are immigration court. They fund the immigration court. They fund how many judges we have. They fund the courtrooms. They fund the phones and the telex lines. They fund all of that. That's what they do. The detention centers that we use at ICE, they fund all of those things. They can't say that all of those things exist. They write checks. Congress writes checks for those every year.
The way the left articulates this is that every single person has the right to due process, right? So, for example, when someone gets deported, yes, they're here illegally. The Democrats would argue, well, that person deserves to go before a judge and have their case adjudicated.
Well, in the case of Garcia, that's exactly the process he went. He went in front of two judges.
But I think there's also the fact that there's a difference. I think what Democrats won't tell you is there's a difference between citizens in the United States, people here legally, and then people who have broken the law and coming in. And then the answer is, well, shouldn't they just be returned?
Well, then there's also a difference between what a criminal court will order and exact and then what happens in the administrative procedures. Immigration law and the procedures for deporting someone and then removing them are all administrative. So they don't have the same kind of rights in that you would have in a criminal trial.
So one of the things that came up with respect to some of these women that were deported was why them? You got 20 million people in this country legally, tons of criminals. What is the hierarchy, if you will, of who are you guys going after first and foremost? And why are people that maybe aren't hardened criminals currently where they are in the queue?
Well, this is the difference between the leadership that we have now and Kristi Noem, Tom Homan, and Donald Trump. The border matters. The sovereignty of the United States matters. If you're in the country without being inspected, admitted, invited, or within the rule of law, you're subject to deportation. And so sometimes people are getting arrested. Now, the priority, if you talk to Todd Lyons, who's the acting director now of ICE, the priority is the worst of the worst. He's going after hardened criminals that are in every community in the United States. That's their priority. But if that criminal is living with other people who are in the country illegally, they're also going to be arrested because this president, and he's only the first one that's ever stated it out loud, is that if you're in the country illegally, you're going to be subject to enforcement procedures.
Okay, so in the case of some of these individuals, why them? Like, what was it that they were with people? Why are we hearing about them when necessarily we haven't heard about some of when we still have other criminals to get to?
Well, it's because the media wants to over-index on somebody who's not a criminal because there's very few of them. And so when they find it, they light it up and they try to tell us.
So are we going to see more of these people who necessarily aren't criminals? I guess my point is, I get it, right? So my view is if you're in the country illegally, you still get deported. But is it the case that you just, when you come across these people, you might as well just get rid of them? Why, for the folks in the media who are saying, why these women now? What's the answer?
There's no exception under the law. If you're in the country illegally, you're subject to being arrested. And they were in the wrong place at the wrong time after they made the choice to come into the country illegally.
Okay, so the bottom line is, I also think it sends us a message, which I think we've talked about this on the show before, the CBP One app, which is if people start thinking that, it's just a matter of time, then maybe I self-deport now.
That's right.
So that's,
Consequences matter. The policy that what happens after you are arrested under this presidency is you're going to be on a path for removal. Under the Biden presidency, you were arrested and you were waiting to be released into the United States. That's a real difference for everybody involved.
So I firmly believe that the signal that we send, the bat signal, if you will, under the Biden administration literally said, come, we'll give you free gifts. Under Donald Trump, it says no. How important is the signal to deterring illegal immigration versus, say, just having a border wall?
No, it's the actions. Consequences always matter in this. If you let people get away with bad behavior, like crossing the border illegally, if you let them get away with it, they're going to do more of it. They're going to tell their friends, and they're going to come and do more of it. So when you institute consequences at the line and in the interior, the bad behavior starts to be reduced. In the case of the border, less illegal entries because, like you said, that signal's going around the globe that says if you come under this time now, you will be removed.
Okay, so we know we're going after the worst of the worst, the criminals, the bad guys. How is this a case that in 4 years from now, so let's just say that you've been living in the shadows for the last 4, 5, 6 years under Biden. What is the message that you want those people to get? Which is it, you might as well go now because we're going to get to you. It might take a year, it might take 2, or should they wait it out?
Well, they're subject to being arrested and removed for the mere fact that they're in the country illegally. They have an opportunity to register with the government. DHS has a website to go and register. If they're in the CBP, what used to be CBP 1 is now CBP Home. They can raise their hand in that application and say, I want to go back home. I don't want the knock on my door. I need an assistance with a travel document or with funds for an airline ticket. All of that is possible under the current administration. They don't have to be arrested and removed if they go home by themselves.
So in the case of an individual who is married to somebody not legally in this country, what is the advice that you guys give them? It's, hey, you guys both deport, you make a choice. What is the advice to somebody who's married someone not in the country?
Yeah, that's an individual decision. That couple will have to decide what's best for them if one of them is subject to deportation and removal.
Okay. I appreciate you spending time with us. Thanks for everything that you guys are doing to secure our body, to keep us safe, and keep up the great work.
Thanks so much.
All right, Ron. Thank you. What a great conversation with Ron, explaining what we're doing and why we're doing it. That just shows you don't believe the liberal hype. All right. Now, he never disappoints. Our good friend, Seb Gorka. Seb, thanks for being here today.
Yeah.
You know, this is a big moment for you guys to think about the 100 days. The first thing that I want to ask you, though, is, like, you and I were in the first administration. I reflected a lot about those first 100 days when I think about this 100 days. What stands out to you as being different from then versus now?
Wow. Where to begin, Sean? So, look, I don't think I'm surprising anyone, but back then we had bad people inside the building. Right. We had people like John Kelly at the rank of Chief of Staff. We had people like Vindman, uniformed O5s who were committing felonies by leaking presidential phone calls to the Washington Post. So we had people who were actively subverting the mandate of 64 million Americans that the president had received back in the first administration. Now, if you just do a little kind of, list of who the characters are across the administration, who are the cabinet members, who are the directors, the fact that, Kash Patel, a friend of mine, runs the FBI, that I'm friends with Pam Bondi, John Radcliffe, on and on and on. It's different. And it's not because it's not the function that we know each other. It's that we're all committed to the president's vision and the mandate. I'm not saying there aren't bad guys in the swamp, but the idea that, there are no Rex Tillersons. There are no people who shouldn't be here making decisions or trying to undermine the president. And I think you've seen, look, can I tell you a story that I haven't shared publicly?
Yes, please.
So there's this thing, Pebble Beach, right? Yeah. The North Lawn, right, where you have these little canvas tents next to each other for all the cable stations. When they say, our correspondent from the White House, they're standing in a camera that's, with 20 other cameras in this temporary canvas overhang on the North Lawn. Second week of the administration, I'm standing there doing an interview for Newsmax, or waiting to do an interview. And there's a woman next to me in the ABC or NBC camera thing. She's not on air yet, but she's got her little earpiece in. You can hear, she's talking to her producer, and clearly she doesn't realize that canvas is not sound deadening, right? And I'm right next to her, and she goes, I don't know, I can't keep up. Yeah, that's the point, madam. Right. Shock and awe. We are doing so much at the same time, whether it's the border, whether it's tariffs, whether it's counterterrorism, that the lunatics can't keep up with us.
So it's not true, but in fairness, I thought about this. I was doing a segment for my show yesterday, right? And I talked to some of our former colleagues here, and they sent me, I'd asked them, give me some of the talking points in the list. I swear to God, I think it was like 25 pages, and that's the summary.
Right.
So, respectfully, it's not just the lunatics. It's people like me that can't keep up. And I say that because I was reminded, right? And so I think about this in the context of some of the stuff that you've done. I've remembered from some of the Instagram photos of you greeting some of these people back to, and if sometimes I don't know that we fully have time to appreciate digest them with. And that does make me wonder. So not that he should slow down, but how do we get people to understand some of the human pieces? Because I think when I walked onto the White House today and I saw the faces of illegals that have committed crimes in America, it's a reminder. It puts a face to it. It says, these are bad people.
Was that clever?
But it was. But part of it is that sometimes you have to slow down and remind people of what President Trump's accomplishing and how it impacts the lives of Americans.
I'm going to disagree with you. I don't think it's about slowing down.
No. It's the
about,
message part, not the action.
It's about turning it into a narrative, which is, of course, what the left is very good. Telling a story with an arc.
Fair.
Okay? That's what we need to do more
Right,
of.
and I don't want to be, I'm with you. I don't think he should slow down, but there should be, how do we tell?
The story should be told. It's... I'm not a big fan of his, but did you see this video Glenn Beck posted last night about how the president took us upstairs to the private residence and he told us these amazing stories and showed us amazing things. And he does his usual, almost crying thing. And then we came downstairs and my wife and I had to sign this piece of paper saying, we can't tell anyone what the president told us. And I want to share these stories with you. I think the broader point is we need to tell the stories. Let me tell you one story.
Okay.
From the last 100 days, which is, this is my career pinnacle, okay? When this happened to me, I'm good, okay? If nothing else happens to me in my life, I am satisfied after 26 years of doing counterterrorism. It's the night of the joint session of Congress and the president's address. And I'd come in day one on the inauguration with one priority at the top of my list for the president and for America, getting Jafar, the architect of the Abbey Gate bombing that killed 13 of our service members. But honestly, I thought this would take us maybe a year, at best 6 months, because this guy's been hiding around tough regions of the world. 41 days later, I'm standing on the apron at Dulles. The president has given his speech, and I'm there. Think of this, what this means. Because there's no cameras there. This isn't a press thing. This is a commitment to mission thing. I'm standing there. It's freezing. It's 2 a.m. Tulsi Gabbard, Director of National Intelligence. John Ratcliffe, CIA Director. Pam Bondi, the AG. Kash Patel, the new Director of the FBI, are there with no press cameras with me and about 100 agents waiting for the DOJ jet to land from Pakistan with the architect of the Abbey Gate slaughter on board. And that's like a Tom Clancy movie.
Yeah.
We went in a convoy of 50 vehicles with the lights going onto the apron of Dulles. The FBI agent next to me said, I've never seen a 50-car federal convoy on the apron that wasn't the president's. And then the real thing for me, this is the thing that mattered. Not only did I go up, I let the principals go up, do their thing, verify their identity, then they left. And then I went up and I looked into the face of that murderer because I wanted to see who this guy was. And then I came down and I realized standing behind me quietly for the last 2.5 hours were about a dozen members of the intelligence community, people who'd briefed me for the last 41 days, the people who work in the dark, the quiet professionals who had no expectation they'd see this man ever. And I looked at them and I said, why are you here? And they said, this is personal. For 3 years, we've been tracking this man. And the last administration didn't want to bring him to justice. So we just wanted to be at Dulles when you guys brought him. You know what I did? I said, you know what? I broke them into groups of 3. And I took them up onto the deck of the aircraft so these analysts who've been tracking this man for 3.5 years could look him in the face. When you do that, you don't need a medal. You don't need a nice piece of paper. When you see the look, when the chief analyst hugs you after and says, you have no idea what that meant.
All those hours in working, they go, that's why we do it. Let me just ask you the last thing that I want. You're working on this counterterrorism strategy. Explain what it is and when it's going to come out.
So it's imminent. I've got 90% there. I just literally mentioned it to my team. I've broken the back of the CT strategy, the draft, which then I'll share with my directorate and then we'll share with the rest of the government. The big difference is we're getting politics out of counterterrorism. We're not going to be allowing the FBI to surveil Catholics because they go to Latin Mass. We're not going to have, school board, meeting parents tracked as domestic terrorists. We're getting politics out of counterterrorism. And we're also being smart about counterterrorism. We're bringing back something from the first administration called sustainable counterterrorism. We're not doing forever wars for decades with trillions of dollars. We're going to go in hard. We're going to smack the biggest organizations to their back in their box, and we're going to keep America safe.
Awesome. Hey, thanks for spending time with us.
God bless you, Sean. We miss you.
Well,
we miss you.
I enjoy what I'm doing now, and I know you're enjoying it. So let's just, I'll come be a visitor. How's that?
Love it.
Thanks, brother. Appreciate it. Thank you. Guys, what a great show. We've got, as I said, so much more coming your way tomorrow. Some of these great conversations that I had. Tammy Bruce of the State Department talking China, Ukraine, so much more. Plus, later in the week, Byron Donald's a great panel coming your way Thursday. I've got a brand new newsletter dropping today, SeanSpicer.com. Click on it. It's free. Always love a VIP member. SeanSpicer.com. Click on the newsletter. Please share the show with your friends. I thank you for all your support. I'll see you back here tomorrow on the Sean Spicer Show. Well, if you enjoyed this content, make sure to like this video, subscribe, and click the notification bell to get more.